Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of TASC Mathematics. We're going to be looking at one-step linear equations again, but we're going to be looking at the division principle and the multiplication principle. Now here's my first example. As always, I tell my students, read the problem. If you read the equation, it gives you an idea of what operations are being used. So this first one is actually 4 times x equals to 28. Now, how do I know it's times? Usually, if they want you to add something, they'll put a plus sign. If they want you to subtract, they'll put a minus sign. If they want to emphasize division, they use a fraction bar. So if I don't see any addition, subtraction, or division, then it's multiplication by default. So when the coefficient is next to the variable, that is multiplication. So this is 4 times x equals to 28. As always, when you're solving these linear equations, you want to isolate your variable. So I want to isolate the x, which means I need to eliminate or get rid of the 4. And the only way I can do that is by doing the opposite. So the 4 is multiplying the x. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm using a fraction bar here. So I would have to divide by 4 because I want to get rid of the 4 using division. When I divide, the 4's are canceled because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I get 1x. So my x is isolated. And then I'll go ahead here and divide. Remember, when you divide, you go to heaven. So 4 goes into 28 7 times. You can check your answer as always. Write your equation, 4x equals to 28. Replace your x by its numerical value, which is 7. Now on the left hand side, 4 times 7 is 28. So the left equals the right. So your answer is correct. In this example, I made sure my coefficient was a negative integer. So again, this is being read as negative 8 times x equals 40. So I want to isolate my x, which means I need to get rid of the negative 8. The negative 8 is connected to the x by multiplication. I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. I am going to divide both sides by negative 8 because, again, I want to isolate the x. So I need to get rid of who is attached to my variable. The negative 8's cancel each other, leaving you with x all by itself. And then again, divide going to heaven. Remember, negative, when goes into a positive, will give you a negative. And then 8 goes into 45 times. Your answer is negative 5. If you check, I have negative 8x equals to 40. So this will be negative 8. My value for x is negative 5 equals to 40. When you multiply two negatives, you get a positive. 8 times 5 is 40. The left equals the right. So my answer of x equals negative 5 is correct. Let's look at 2 more examples. Now, again, they don't have to write their variable on the left-hand side. It can be on the right. So always remember, you're trying to isolate that variable, no matter if it's on the left or the right. For us here, it's on the right, which means I need to get rid of negative 5. So I'm going to do the opposite of the operation, okay? Opposite of the operation. The x and the negative 5 are connected by multiplication. So my operation would be division. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. That cancels, leaving me with x. And then again, we're dividing. You go to heaven. 2 negatives gives you a positive. And 5 goes into 20 4 times. Remember, you're always doing the opposite of how the coefficient and the variable are connected. In this example, I made sure my x was again on the left-hand side, but I have 18x equals to 6. So who am I solving for? The x. I am trying to isolate x, which means I need to get rid of 18. 18 is connected to x by multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I would divide both sides by 18. That cancels the 18. I have x equals. Remember, when you divide, you go to heaven. Can 18 divide 6 evenly? The answer is no. When I got that answer, I know that this is a fraction. And if I have a fraction, I need to reduce. So here, let's get that out of the way. X equals to 6 over 18. What number would divide 6 and 18 evenly? The biggest number is 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 18 divided by 6 will give me 3. So my answer is x equals to 1/3. Now your answer can be a fraction, or it can be an integer, or it can be a decimal. You never know. So don't think that your answer needs to be always a whole number or an integer. Now, you're probably saying, how can she check x equals 1/3? So again, I have 18x equals to 6. I have 18 and my x is 1 over 3 equals to 6. I'm going to make the 18 a fraction, put it over 1. Remember, when you're multiplying fractions, you go straight across. 18 times 1 is 18. Over 1 times 3 is 3. And if you divide by going to heaven, 3 goes into 18 6 times. So the left equals the right. So that's your division principle. Let's look at the multiplication principle. Now, my students always have trouble with the multiplication principle. So the other day I was thinking of how's an easy way to teach the multiplication principle. And I came up with this method. So I hope you enjoy it and you like it. So here, if you read this problem, this is x divided by 2 equals to 5. So if I want to isolate my x, get my x all by itself, I have to do the opposite of division, which is multiplication. So here's the little trick I came up with as I was thinking how to make this easy. You're going to multiply, but you're going to multiply diagonally. So whenever your problem on the left or the right has a fraction and it equals one number, you're going to multiply diagonally. So here I'm going to write x equals, and 2 times 5 is 10. If you want to check, go ahead. X over 2 equals 5. We figured out x is 10 over 2 equals to 5. Now 2 goes into 10 5 times, and the left equals the right. Let's try this one. Again, I'm solving for x. So I'm going to write my x equals, and then I'm going to multiply these two numbers. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. And you're finished. If you want to check, x over negative 2 equals to negative 4. We figured out that x is 8. So wherever I see x, I replace it by 8. And now I'm going to divide that 8 by negative 2. When you divide, you get a negative 4. The left equals the right. Again, they can put their x on the left or the right. They can put it anywhere, but remember who you're solving for. The x. So again, I'm going to multiply these two numbers. Well, they're the only two numbers I have. So you're going to do a multiplication. So 9 times negative 3, I'm going to put my multiplication sign, is negative 27. And you're all finished. You want to check? 9 equals to x over negative 3. We figured out that x is negative 27 over negative 3. And if you divide here on the right hand side, 2 negatives gives you a positive. So 3 goes into 27 9 times. The left equals the right. So your answer is correct. So with the multiplication principle, whenever you have a division, and you have to solve for x, you're going to multiply and just multiply diagonally, and you're finished. I hope this video has been helpful. Good luck on your TASC examination.